us on what we're seeing and the ways he prevents being victims of crime. Today, like I said, it's about keeping your home safe. What I'm going to give you, so how many people own like a single family house? Okay, how many people live in an apartment? How many people rent a house? Okay, so everything, it doesn't matter, you could be living in a tent. All this stuff I'm going to give you be a little bit more difficult, what I'm going to tell you, but all these things I'm going to tell you are going to, apartment, house, townhouse, condo, it doesn't matter. Now, if you are in a rental property, you're going to be kind of restricted on what you can and can't do. Also, ask your landlord about that. A couple things, no presentation is good without a disclaimer. There is no foolproof method to keep you safe or keep your home safe. If there is, let us know, we'd like to know too. But I'm going to give you what's based on our best practices, on my education, on just general best practices from different organizations. Also, they're going to be, I'm using pictures of different security hardware products like locks and cameras. It's not an endorsement of those products, I'm just using it as an example. Please do your own research, and I'll go into how to research some of these products in the future a little bit. But just do your own research before you buy any products. So if you see a picture of a Ring camera or a Schlage deadbolt, you know, it's not an endorsement of it, it's just I Googled the image for a lock and that's what came up. So, quick outline of what we're going to do. I'm going to do a quick introduction. I'm going to lay the foundation of just an overall general discussion about why crime occurs. Talking about the design of the house or where you live. And then I'll be talking about tips for keeping your home safe, so about locking hardware and other things. First, a quick introduction. Why are we here? A little bit about me. I've been in law enforcement since 2013. I was with Orange County Sheriff's Office for 2013 to 2017, and then 2017 to now. I've been with the Maitland Police Department. I've been with our community policing unit since 2020. Unfortunately, we started right in March of 2020. And for, like, literally, I think March 3rd is when we started back up. And so the first year or two was a little rough, but now we're fully in the swing of things. I'm a crime prevention practitioner and a crime prevention through environmental design practitioner. So I went through some special training, which I'll go over the CEPTED, the crime prevention through environmental design, in a little bit. I'm also a field training officer and a general instructor through FDLE, so that means I can teach the newbies and I can teach old salty vets. A little bit more, I also have my Bachelor of Science degree in Criminology and Political Science. I also did an internship with the DEA, which was very, very interesting. So goals and objectives, I want to provide an overview of how to assess your house. And I want to give you some tips to design or to mitigate those weak points. And then finally, I hope that you all become a student of public safety, or of safety, because unfortunately these things keep evolving. What the presentation I give you now, and if I come back in a year or two and give this presentation, there might be some very big differences, especially in technology. So it's one thing, unfortunately, you just got to be a student of it. You got to always be looking out to see read the newspaper, sometimes to see what crimes are out there, like, oh, that's interesting, they did this, they did that, and then adapt from there. Not my goals. I don't want you to become just overall fear, hypervigilance, anxiety. That's not my point here. I also don't want you to engage in profiling, especially with people. Judge people based on their actions, not the way they look. That's always the best route. And I also don't want you to go the opposite of becoming so just fear, hypervigilance, where you just are apathetic and you don't care anymore. With a little bit of knowledge, you can prevent the vast majority of crimes. With just a little bit of knowledge. Keeping your doors locked, don't leave things in your cars. That's the vast majority of your crimes, at least in Maitland and in other areas, and in most areas. So even with just a little bit of knowledge, you can prevent the vast majority of crimes. So here's some common concerns. I like to get these kind of out of the way. Like I said, these are the current best practices based on studies and my experience. Again, like I said, a year from now there might be different ones based on circumstances. There's, like I said, no foolproof, realistic method. Unless you want to live in a castle with a moat with alligators and machine guns, great, but most of us can't afford that or can't do that. There is no foolproof method. There will always be what ifs. You can what if something to death. We're trying to mitigate the vast majority of crimes. That's what we're trying to do. The outliers of someone who hired an expert lockpicker and alarm bypasser to get in your house, sure, that can happen. I don't know what everyone does here, unless you're a secret agent or a president of a big giant company, you probably don't have to worry about that. And At the end of the day, sometimes, yes, it only does take one person not following protocols, someone not locking the door, or not leaving the lights on. It is what it is. One request before we start. This is an extremely information-dense presentation, so I'm going to try and go through everything. If you have any questions, comments, or stories, please hold them to the end. However, if you need me to clarify something about something that I'm talking about, please don't hesitate to ask. But if you have like, hey, my cousin, this happened to my cousin, those type of questions, please hold it to the end. I would be more than happy to talk about those with you. So, exactly, yeah, that comes up. So let's talk about laying the foundation. I don't know, does anyone have a criminal justice or criminology either degree or took some classes in college or anything like that? No? You were? Okay. So let's talk about this. This is from a psychologist. He's a criminal psychologist, and I like this. It is what it is, and this kind of sums it up. To properly plan for violence, you must first admit and accept the world is not as it ought to be. It's unfortunately, that's just the way it is. So keep that in mind. Here's some other questions while we're going through this that I want you to keep in the back of your head. Why does crime occur? How do we stop people from committing crime? And how do we reduce our chances of becoming a victim? So first, there's this general theory that, again, as of now, it's the general theory of why crime occurs. It's called the basic crime prevention theory. In order for a crime to occur, there must be 3 factors present. If one of the 3 factors is not present, then probably no crime is going to occur. The person must have the desire to commit the crime, they must have the ability to commit the crime, and the opportunity to commit the crime, and then that equals crime. If one of those 3 things is missing, more than likely the crime's not going to occur. And let's dig deep now a little bit into the 3 different aspects. We call this also the crime prevention triangle. So the desire, that means the person wants to commit the crime. They have it inside them like, I want to do this. The ability, that means that someone can physically commit the crime. So if you want to steal a dump truck but you don't have the keys, like you can't just pick up, most people can't pick up the dump truck and take it away. So that's what I talk about. But everyone, if you wanted to come and steal this small thing of plants, everyone has, pretty much in here, has the physical ability to actually do that, right? To pick it up and take it out. And then the opportunity, that means the crime can be committed. So another way that I like to explain it is through these 2 illustrations. Does everyone know what Fort Knox is? Yeah. So I say it's where we keep all our gold, right? I don't even want all the gold. Just give me a few bars. I don't even want all of it. Just give me a few. So there's a lot of desire, right? There's a bunch of gold in there, right? But the problem with Fort Knox, though, is that the ability. First off, gold is pretty heavy, so we can only probably take each maybe 1 or 2 gold bars. So if we wanted to steal the whole thing, we need trucks, we need forklifts and everything else. It is heavily fortified. So you're not going to have any opportunity. I have one presentation I was giving to a group. I thought the last time I checked that also all of our tanks, if you either if someone's in the military, please correct me. If you either touch a tank, you drive a tank, or anything to do with tanks, you start out at Fort Knox. So we also have a large contingency of tanks stationed there. So really no one has any opportunity to steal the gold in there, even though there's a high desire for it, right? Now let's flip side, 7-Eleven. Why does anyone pay for gum? It is so easy to steal the gum there. If you just want a little pack of Wrigley's gum, you can just wait for the store clerk to turn around, put it in your pocket, and walk out. I'm sure that happens. It's probably happening right now as you speak, all across the country. But why don't we steal the gum? We have the opportunity, we have the ability. Why don't we?
Morality.
It's exactly the desire. No one here has the desire to steal the gum. It's like because your morality or for various other reasons you're afraid to get caught, things like that. So that's kind of the best way to illustrate it, is that this one, all the desire in the world, no opportunity or ability. This one, all the opportunity and ability in the world, but no desire. So that's the way to think about the crime prevention triangle. Here's what we need to focus on though. It is very difficult to reduce someone's desire and ability. That desire, someone's in people's heart. You guys having a strong church community, or hopefully trying to teach people morality, and so that way they don't have the desire to commit crimes. However, can't reach everyone, and there are just going to be some bad people out there sometimes. And then ability. Unless we start chopping off people's arms and legs, everyone has the ability usually to commit the crime. So it is very, very difficult to affect people's desire and ability. What we can do, though, is to affect their opportunity. So the basic crime prevention theory is that we have those three factors. While we would love to affect people's desire and ability, we really just need to focus on opportunity. So limiting someone's opportunity to commit the crime should be our overall goal. So that's the basic overview. So now we're at the 10,000 foot level. Now we're going to go a little bit lower. So let's talk about design. This aspect of security is, I think, something that's very, very overlooked. One thing, and it's something that I'm trying to preach, and we do, does anyone live within the city limits of Maitland? So do you have a black street sign where you live that has a little M on it? No one? No. Looks like I don't either. I would love to live in the city limits, but but if that being said, though, most agencies in the area have programs where they'll do security surveys for your house. So if you want to know, you can just contact whatever agency has jurisdiction over it. But design is something I don't think a lot of people think of. So let's talk about it. What do you guys see when you see this house? Shout some things out for me. What do you see? I've already clipped ahead a little bit, but it's very dilapidated. It doesn't look like anyone cares about it. Yeah. Right? No one cares about it. Maybe they're lazy.
Yeah. They got nothing.
Yes, that's true. It could be. Secluded. I mean, if you see the bushes here, so it's very secluded. It's a lot of the front is covered.
There's
Where's the entrance? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was gonna say second floor. You could get up there and go right into the.
Oh yeah. And also, there's a big old hole in the roof. So, but also basic things like where's the entrance? I mean, it's right. I mean, that's the front door, but do you come in off here? Do you come in off here? Also, you don't come up through the center. So very basic things like that. Now, what do you see when you see a house like this?
The opposite.
Exactly. You see a lot of the opposite things. You see an entrance. It's clear. No one's going to get confused. Hopefully, no one's confused on where you're supposed to go. Right? You can be seen. Look at all the windows here. You also have an opportunity to be seen because all the neighbors have porches, and also this house has a porch. So there's opportunity that someone could be sitting there and you could be seen. Also all the windows, and even on the sides of the house, you can see their windows. So even if I came up the side, you might be seen. Someone cares. The property is tidy, it's clean, it's well maintained, so it looks like someone cares. And also someone's connected to the community. They have bikes parked out front, so clearly they are on foot or on bicycle going throughout the community, right? So I think that one of the theories is that design could play a really big role, and even stuff on maintaining your property to make it look nice could play a role. A couple other things, the truth about human nature. Humans, in most cases, seek the path of least resistance. I'm sure we've all seen these before. The technical term is an experience trail. So where people will just go around an object, or like I like this one. It's like instead of using the roundabout, they just go straight through it, right? So we want, when thinking about that with security, we want it on your property to be as easy to get to where people need to go. And this also, backing up a little bit, this also, anyone a business owner, have a business, building or own, okay. These design principles also for your business. So keep that in mind. Also, but also for your house. You want it to be as easy for people to get in and out, the people you want, your visitors, as possible. You do not want them to get lost. There's a couple reasons for that, which we'll get into. Another thing also is that in most cases, the more time you have and reduced stress equals better decisions, right? So, does anyone know Alex Trebek at Jeopardy and Final Jeopardy? Yeah, right? That's pretty stressful. And then also, used car salesman. This is no offense, because a lot of my few friends that are used car salesmen, but the scheming ones will try and really get on you. Or high pressure sales tactics. The reason why they want you to make a decision now. Right? Another truth about most criminals is they're opportunists. That most of them want to surprise their victims so they have the upper hand. Right? Also, they do not want to get caught before, during, or after their crime, right? So anyone else have a cat? So you see him there, say he's about to jump out and attack someone, right? So they want to ambush their victims. what can we do about these problems? So one half of it is something called CPTED. So it's crime, it's the acronym, it's crime prevention through environmental design. Does anyone know about the ISO, the Institute of Standards, something or other? But you ever hear ISO standards, like your phone is ISP or ISO certified? Yeah, that sort of thing. So there is the ISO, which I believe is supposed to be in January, they're supposed to come out, but they have now standards for crime prevention through environmental design for businesses. I don't think they have it for homes yet. But the basic theory is that a crime prevention philosophy that is based on the theory that the proper design and effective use of the built environment can lead to the reduction in the fear of crime as well as an improvement in the quality of life. One thing also is the fear of crime is also, I think, sometimes overlooked, because if you can't effectively use the space, even though it might be the most secure space in the world, but if you just have this, the space gives off the aura like it's not safe, can you really truly effectively use the space? One of the big things is to remove as many places as possible where criminals can conduct their crimes with ease. It also allows for a more effective and easier use of the space, because when someone is lost on a property or it's not being used effectively, then it can increase your chances of becoming a victim of crime. Like if you get lost on this property, you might end up in a little back alleyway, there might be someone there. Also provide a sense of ownership to the space. Again, think of those two houses. There's a sense of ownership there, like someone cares about this space, and that if I do something bad, I'm going to get caught. And then finally, discourage criminals. There's some studies that say that if a criminal goes to one place, they go, man, I can't do my crime here, and they go to the next place, oh, I can't do it here, that the more of those, the more times they go and they can't do their crime, then they probably just won't do it. There's some studies, again, I don't know about the validity, 100% validity of those, but there are studies that say that. So there are four basic concepts in CPTED. First is natural surveillance. I'm going to go over these in a lot more detail. You have natural surveillance, you have natural access control, you have territorial reinforcement, and then finally maintenance. So let's talk about natural surveillance. This is probably the most important one. You want to design the space as much as to have as much visibility to legitimate users as possible. So, and you want to make anyone who comes on property or that's walking up to your house so that they can be seen from your house as much as possible. Also, you can use things that are called positive activity generators to attract normal users to a specific area. So one common one for houses is your front porch. So that's a positive activity generator. So it gets people to go and sit in front of your house. Not people, but you have an ability to sit in front of your house, enjoy your coffee or whatever. So that way you can observe people coming to and from your house. But it also gives a sense to criminals that say, hey, they could be out there. There's a possibility of someone being out there. So I might want to go to the next house. Also windows facing out. So one great thing, if your house has a good amount of windows that face the front so you can see people coming in. Again, it gives a sense of, I'm going to be seen, but also does give you an opportunity to be able to monitor the front of your house where most people are going to be coming in. Right. So territorial reinforcement. That is marking your territorial control space while discouraging your potential offenders who receive this control and avoid it. So this is a great example of territorial reinforcement. It is extremely clear that that is public and that is private. You're very, very clear by the use of landscaping and the use of the fence here, the front of the fence, or the fence here in the front yard. So it's very clear sense of ownership. So having and defining where your property is also very important. All right. Then we have natural access control. So what that is, it's the design of the environment that guides or obstructs people in and around your property. So those are things like sidewalks, signage, lighting. Don't worry about the vehicle circulation. You don't have to worry about that in most people's houses unless you live in a house that big that has a big circle driveway. So you don't really have to worry about that. But again, the idea is that it should be very, very clear where people are supposed to go. In this house, it is very, very clear. I am supposed to go up this sidewalk and to the front door. you want to be very, very clear. If you go back to that previous house, the really rundown one, it wasn't clear where the front door is. So they might go up on the side of the house, they might go up to the wrong, they have a 50-50 shot, and they might choose the wrong side. So it also makes your your ability to identify people that are abnormal easier. If you see someone on the sidewalk coming up to your house, that's normal, right? You might not know who they are, but that's normal. So, okay, they're coming up to you to knock on the door. Maybe it's a neighbor, maybe it's the Amazon delivery guy, who knows? But now what if you see them and you're off the path, off of where they're clearly supposed to be? That's a clue, right? That, hey, there's something weird. Either maybe it's criminal, maybe it's not. Maybe the guy's having a medical emergency. But that should be a clear sign to you, like, hey, there's something weird about here. I should pay attention to it more. So that's why it's important to have natural access control, especially in the businesses. It's very important. It should be very, very clear where you're supposed to go. And finally, maintenance. It actually wasn't until a few years ago where they added this as a fourth pillar. Because it'd be great. You go out there, you trim your hedges, you do all this stuff, and then you just let it all go to heck. So take, for instance, this. So this house, you have all these bushes here. You have them blocking windows, and you can't really see where the sidewalk is. And just with a little bit of landscaping, they chop down the bushes. That way, you can the windows have unobstructed views of the outside. But again, performing this routine maintenance is very, very important because again, it gives the sense of ownership over property. Here's now we're gonna. So that is septet. I love septet. I could go multiple hours into that. I love it. It's awesome. If you want me to come back and talk about it more, I will gladly too. So now we're going to talk about securing your home. So this is now a little bit of more nuts and bolts. Also another thing too, if this feels like you're drinking from a fire hose, I would be more than happy to send this PowerPoint presentation out to you guys.
Yeah.
So that is more than happy. Nothing, you guys are recording on YouTube, nothing here is secret. So nothing is anything that we can't disseminate. So I'd be more than happy to send this off to you guys. So your overall goals and considerations. Your overall goal is to prevent unwanted individuals from entering your home, right? That's the overall goal. We don't want anyone to come in our house that we don't want them in their house. And also allow as much opportunity for an intruder to be noticed. So we want the ability for you guys to notice someone as much as possible. And kind of your bottom one is to at least slow them down as much as possible, to again give you the opportunity to notice them. These tips will apply to every type of residence. Like I said before, it doesn't matter, apartment, condo, does not matter. One thing to keep into consideration is that you may not be able to make some of these changes, again, based on rental agreements, zoning laws, HOAs, other restrictions. So do your homework. I can't speak to every single HOA or every single, I can tell you where to look in the city of Maitland where our codes are, but I don't know them off the top of my head. Do your research before changing anything on your residence as well. Again, I also like to say, if you are not comfortable, hire a licensed, bonded, and insured professional. So one other thing that you should always, this is true for every single type of security, for your house, for your belongings, for yourself, for your information, you want layers of security. You do not want to have single points of failure. Try and eliminate single points of failure as possible. So what does that look like for your house? Again, you want to increase opportunity for observation. Example is you have your lighting, right? So that way you can see people at night. You also have reduced hiding spots. So I'll go over planting of vegetation. Like you have a spot in your residence where like, man, I can't really just bump out a wall. So you can plant a thorny bush there to discourage people from hiding there. Also, you have good quality locks. And an alarm system. So you have layers. So hopefully one of those things hopefully you'll see them for the lighting. And if you don't, you know that they aren't hiding anywhere because you reduce the number of hiding spots. But heck, if worst case scenario, at least you have good quality locks. But if they get through that, then they'll trigger an alarm. That's where we're talking about layers of security here. So hopefully you aren't relying only on a good quality alarm or good quality lock. You want to have multiple things. So other consideration is that when it comes to security hardware, you generally get what you pay for. Do your research. Number one research tools: YouTube, Amazon, Google. Those actually work well, especially YouTube, and especially for locks. There are things, expensive garbage and diamonds in the rough. Some of these locks, yeah, if you want to go spend thousands of dollars on locks, great. But again, do your research. One thing that I like to do is just simply Google it.
Every lock is breakable.
Yeah. In fact, actually, most locks are just they're graded on how long it takes a locksmith to get through them. That's a lot of times how they're graded. There is unfortunately no unpickable lock. Read the reviews carefully and critically. It has been known to happen in Amazon, especially where they pay for reviews. So just be very, very thorough in your research. I would do things like go to Amazon reviews and then YouTube it. If you're looking at, let's say, electronic deadbolt. Like, okay, I see this quick set one. I'm going to look at the Amazon reviews. Okay, getting good reviews. And let me go to the YouTube and like, okay, it gets good reviews. So multiple sources.
Do you have any recommendations yourself of like some that are good? Or not? Or
I cannot give specific recommendations. One, I will say this: before you buy a master lock, do your research.
Okay.
I will say that because that one, master lock. I will say this: master lock has some good ones, and then they have some junk. One of the first thing I like to talk about with some nuts and bolts things about securing a house. That again, another thing that people don't think about is social management. What do I mean by that? Things like getting to know your neighbors. I'm guilty of it too, but I try and at least have a first name basis on my neighbors. Getting to know them, what's their general schedule. One thing I do also is I have a point in my neighborhood. So I live in a neighborhood that there's a couple stop signs before you get to my neighborhood. I have a point where it's everyone past this certain stop sign I wave to. Every single person. Why do I do this? It's a baseline. Because if I wave to you, generally what's people's reaction? Wave back. But if I wave to someone and they go, and they're like, okay, that's weird. Maybe they're having a bad day. Maybe they're having a bad day. Maybe they're not friendly. But also it's a baseline. There's this one neighbor that I had at the house I used to live at. He didn't wave to me no matter what. And he never waved to me, ever, ever, ever. He would just stare at me. But then it was funny. I went for a walk one day, and he was out, and I waved to him, and I got to know him. He's a super friendly guy. He just never waved to me. But again, it's about establishing a baseline. What is normal in your neighborhood? Is it normal for that person to wave at you, and then one day you're driving by and he doesn't wave at you, or she? What? That's weird. Maybe they didn't notice. But is that normal? But establishing that baseline to see what is normal in your neighborhood, that is very, very important. This is one of the most overlooked aspects of home security because it's been known to happen where someone's house gets burglarized and none of the other neighbors know about it, and then the burglars come back and hit another house using the same exploit because there's a design flaw in the house. That's very, very rare. Put that out there. That's very rare, but it has been known to happen. But this is a very, very, very overlooked thing that not a lot of people talk about. A lot of people like to talk about locks and windows and security systems and all that stuff, but to me, this prevents it. Again, what's normal? If you see unfortunately, a group of kids are usually the ones that are breaking into cars. So if you see a group of kids with their hoods up and they don't wave to you when you're driving by and you're driving home from, let's say you saw a show in downtown Orlando, you went to a Magic game and it's 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock in the morning, that's a clue. So if they don't wave to you or it's like, hey, that's not normal, does anyone work weird hours and they come home at like 3 o'clock in the morning and stuff like that? So again, establish a baseline. And I used to have a neighbor that they worked weird hours too. And so when I was coming home, I'd see him, he'd go for a walk through his neighborhood. There's a guy on the west side here that he works weird hours, and every single rookie Maitland police officer has stopped him because he's out there on his bike just doing loops. And it's like, what does this guy do? He just works weird hours and he loves the bike. So he's not doing anything illegal. But I think everyone has eventually stopped out with him to say, hey, what's going on here? So again, establishing that baseline is really, really important. So now let's talk about some nuts and bolts security stuff. Every exterior door, so I'm talking about doors that lead to the outside of your house, not doors that lead to like the bathroom and the bedroom and stuff. Should be a solid core. I'm going to go over this in a little bit, but should be solid core. So it should be made out of some sort of solid wood or metal. So it shouldn't be hollow. I don't know if you noticed, these are solid core. Yeah, so this thing is a really good solid core door. So where it's solid. I'm sure you've all felt those ones that like go to a closet or something and they're very thin. So it should be a solid core door. Should have a deadbolt. So this is a deadbolt right here. So I'm not talking about this mechanism. It's the actual piece of metal that sticks out, right? And the hinges should be either on the inside. So these hinges would be considered on the inside because they're inside the room. Or they should be, it's okay if you have exterior hinges, but they should have be protected. So there's things like pins and other hinges and other different hardware that you can do to protect them. So that way, which I'll go over in a minute. I'm jumping ahead of myself. So let's talk about the deadbolt strike plate. So one thing that's super common is when you has anyone installed a deadbolt before? So not usually, some companies, they only give you these really small screws, only about an inch or two big. What we suggest is between 2.5 to 3 inch long screws. So all you have to do is take out the old one and then drill I would suggest, you don't necessarily have to do this, but again, do your research. Drill a pilot hole, make the hole longer, and then just replace that screw with a 3-inch screw. Because what it's doing is that it's going through the jamb and into this 2x4 framing. And so that can help prevent, or at least again, slow down someone just kicking the door in. So this is the strike plate here. So the strike plate, this is the strike plate. So this thing is the weakest point of a lock. So this thing right here. So another thing to do is the exterior hinges. Ensure they're secure. This is to prevent people from walking the door off. So is anyone taking the door off its hinges? Super easy for most of them. All you have to do, this one's actually secured. So these are industrial industrial locks. So this is kind of a bad example, but most interior doors, you could just take a nail or something and a hammer and just boop, pop it out and the whole pin comes out. And so what's been known to happen is that people who don't have secure hinges, they just pop the pins out and then they just walk the door off. So if you can see here the hinges are on the outside. Here, that's obviously a exterior door hinge here. So what you can do is there's multiple different versions of this, and there are even some that don't cost you that much money. You don't have to buy anything special. There's these things called door pins. What you do is you replace one of the screws. What you do is you replace one of the screws with this door pin, and then you remove the corresponding screw there. And then what happens is that when the door closes, that pin goes into the hole, and then it can't be walked off. There's multiple different ones. That's one company that makes them, and then there's also a different company that makes them that look like this. So the strike plate will end right here, and that little screw that little nub will stick out. So that's one way of doing it. And like you see to illustrate here, then when the door closes, it goes into that hole. Peephole. You should have a peephole on your front door, even if you have a doorbell camera. Talking about why would we want this? Single point failure, right? Sometimes my house was built in 2020, and I had a brand new peephole, and I noticed this. I don't know if anyone else noticed this, but with the 2 hurricanes, the wind, I had so much sideways rain that my peephole actually filled up with water. Not a lot, but you could see in there and it fogged it up. So I also have a video doorbell, but again, you want that redundancy, because what if you lose power, right? And you're inside your house, at least you could have a simple way to look through the door. So let's talk about locks. You should have, again, a thumb-turn deadbolt on all exterior locks. So what a thumb-turn deadbolt is, then technically is, you would have, on the inside you have the little thumb turn, right? And then on the outside you have the key. That's the thumb-turn deadbolt. Not just key and knob. So these are great for in your bathroom and or in your bedrooms in your house. But you should not just have this in it, because that is spring-loaded. There are ways to just, if it's not installed correctly, you can just do the old credit card trick and just pop the door open. And also they're weak. Those only go into the door frame maybe a 1/2 inch to a 1/4 inch, where a deadbolt should go into your door frame a 1/2 inch to 1 inch. Another thing about locks, which is common, is a double cylinder deadbolt. Does anyone have these? So what it is that you need a key on both the inside and outside of the door to open the deadbolt. These were somewhat popular in the 70s, 80s, 90s. what it was is that if, let's say you had a front door and it had either windows in the door or it had windows on the side of the door, it was thought to put this double cylinder deadbolt in so that way it prevent people, when you go to bed at night, you take the key out, and then that way if someone busts the window open, they can't just reach in and turn the deadbolt. However, it is now common practice that, or common to say that do not, if you have one, replace it with a thumb turn. Because think about it, if let's say you do that at night, you're in bed and then the fire alarm goes off. And you gotta scramble to find a key to get out of your house. So it's considered a fire hazard. It should not be used for residential applications. There are some commercial, but residential for everyone here, do not use those. So if you have one in your house, try and retrofit it to fix it. What you could do is, to mitigate that, is there are protective films that you can have installed on your windows. That way the window is reinforced and it, again, slows them down. I would suggest just replacing your window door with just a solid door, but again, if it looks nice, you do you. Another thing is electronic deadbolts. Does anyone have one of these? Like one of these electronic, well, there's a bajillion different companies that make them now. They have the keypad ones, which this one my in-laws have, and again, single point failure. I don't trust that you can't just put a key in there and open it at some point. That weirds me out. Some people, they're okay with that. Does anyone have an Airbnb or anything like that, or a rental property? Yeah, I say a lot. This is very, very popular on Airbnbs and rental properties. They also have Bluetooth ones where, don't ask me to explain exactly the technology, but you're sent a Bluetooth, essentially a digital key, and through your phone, you could just hold it next to the lock and open it up. And then finally, there are fingerprint ones, right? Those are the three most common ones that we have now. Do your research on that, because again, like I said, there's expensive garbage and diamonds in the rough. That is on the deadbolts there. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I want to add to that. No, that's it. Every exterior door should have a deadbolt. Let's talk about secondary locks. This is probably one of the most, out of all the tips I'm going to give you, this is probably one of the most overlooked in terms of nuts and bolts security hardware. Who has a sliding glass door? Pretty much everyone, right? A lot of people have sliding glass door. You should have a secondary lock on that. Some flavor of secondary lock. There's the Charlie bar. You know what I use for my secondary lock? A piece of wood. I just chop down a piece of wood that's about that big and I put it down in the tracks when it's closed. Doesn't have to be expensive or awesome or anything. So that's called a Charlie bar there to prevent people from opening it up. A J-hook. This is actually, if I may do this in the future, this is one of the best ones you can get. It's this J-hook. There's a little latch mechanism here on the door, and then there's this hook, and then it hooks in to prevent it from being open. And then there's also really dirt cheap track locks. So it's just essentially a little clamp that goes onto the track and prevents it from sliding. And then finally, this is a very common one as well. Some doors come with it pre-installed, but you can also get this retrofitted. It's just a pin. So what it is there's two holes that go through the door, and then you just stick a metal pin in there. Why do we do this? Because on most sliding glass doors, that little lock there is absolute garbage. It's really just to kind of keep the kids out. It does almost nothing. This is a very common entry point, not just because it's a big glass window, people will throw brick through it, but you can also do things like this. You can walk it off the tracks. Because the way those are installed is there's a track and the door, what you do is you swing the door in, you put it up, and then it falls in the track. So there's a gap in that little track area. What you could do is to mitigate, back up. To mitigate that, what you can do is you can install, so you see how there's a gap here in the track? You can put a screw in here, so slide the door open, install a couple screws, kind of at the midway points there, that don't interfere with the door being slid, but what it does is it acts as a stop, so it can't be taken off the tracks. So that's one thing to think about there. And if you don't feel comfortable with that, hire a professional. So some other common ones. These aren't as popular. I don't see them on most modern houses. But does anyone have the side human door?
Oh yeah, the
goes to your garage.
door, yeah.
Yeah, well, they were common back 20, 30 years ago, but I don't really see them that often now. A lot of times they don't have a deadbolt. This is a little small picture, but if you notice right there is no deadbolt. No. You need to have deadbolt on that door. That is very, 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 very common. That those side garage doors don't have deadbolts. So make sure that. Also, does anyone have French doors on the front of their house?
Yeah.
So make sure that they have some sort of, they call flush bolts. Again, there's multiple different companies and multiple different styles, but something that pins that second door into the ground. Usually one on the roof or on the top and the bottom. So make sure those are actually working. And again, does anyone have these side windows on their house or have the front door? I would just make sure that either they come pre-installed with a protective film that keeps the glass in place even if someone tries to smash it. I remember I had a call once where there was someone stuck inside a house, and I use my baton, my knife has a glass break thing on it, and I could not bust that window. I don't know what it was made out of. We eventually had to bust the door down. But it was like, holy crap, I'm beating the crap out of it. But yeah, so make sure that they're either pre-installed or you have them installed. Again, to prevent someone from just reaching in and, oh, I'm good. Windows, again, ensure the locks works. Ensure the lock works. Unfortunately, when houses settle and stuff, they can kind of make the frames out of square, so you won't be able to get it all the way down to throw that lock. There are ways to fix that. So the track locks again. So these little teeny little thumb turn locks that you can just put on the track, those are great. And also pin, another common which I see with wood frame windows a lot, not really with aluminum. But again, you can pin the windows if for some reason your main lock here doesn't work. I'm sure there's a million different models of them. But just make sure that they actually work. Key control. Don't hide your keys. Please don't. Not under the mat. Not any fancy thing that looks like it. Not under a rock. Please don't. Everyone knows about it. It's not a secret. Don't hide your keys. Please don't. If you're worried about key control, again, you could use the digital lock. I love it. Like for instance, if I have someone come in like a worker, I have on the electronic deadbolt that I have, which I wouldn't necessarily recommend. There's multiple codes. So I could give to, let's say I need a worker bee to go in and fix something in my house, I can just give them a code that's not the master code. So it's not going to be able to mess with my alarm system. It's not going to be able to get into anything else. So the ways you can do that are through electronic deadbolts. But also, who has a copy of your key? I'm not saying to never give someone a copy of your key, but it might be good to just kind of go through your head and be like, man, who did I give a copy of the key to? So that way you have control of people who you gave the keys to. But again, like I said, the electronic deadbolts are awesome for this. You give people individual codes. You can deactivate the code when they're finished, and it can also log who unlocks and locks your door. So that's like an interface there for this particular company. And finally, lock your doors and windows. I hate, especially in your cars, but also a common one is people leave their house doors unlocked. Even when you're at home, I would suggest that even if you're home, lock your door and your windows. Because again, we talk about the social management, get to know your neighbors. At the end of the day, someone lived next to you named the serial killer, someone was the serial killer's neighbor, and I don't think there's a single, except for maybe Jeffrey Dahmer, I don't think there's a serial killer that people live next to that was like, oh yeah, he was totally serial, I knew it, totally knew it. Again, you never know, and sometimes, if let's say, it could be things like, let's say there's a police officer, and we're chasing someone, and they bolt and they run. They might be looking to, it could be something that's that quick that we don't have the opportunity to tell people, hey, lock your doors or whatever. Just sometimes you just never know. So always keep your doors and windows locked even in your home. All right, let's talk about exterior lighting. The overall goal for your lighting is to eliminate hiding spots and shadows. That should be the goal of your light. Your outside should be consistently lit. It should also reduce glare too as well, which I'll go over in a minute. Again, you want it to easily see people from inside your house. You could look outside, you can easily identify someone. Also, you're looking for things like color, the way it renders color. So for instance, these LED lights are great for rendering color. It's clear that I'm wearing blue and that this, my watch is black. It's very clear. Where if you have these yellowed lights or a different color temperature, which I'll go into a minute, you might not know the difference of the different colors here. So it's very, very important. One thing, each light should have a purpose and be aimed at a specific location. So sometimes you just throw a light out there, you don't really have a goal. It should have a specific goal. And you should really be careful for glare. A lot of people have spotlights, and you could do, excuse me, you should be looking for what are called cutoff fixtures. That means that the fixture is designed to project all of its light onto the ground. That's the key. You don't want to just be projecting light, but just out into space. So a lot of times the old school spotlights will have that, where it's just a big old light that projects almost in a 180-degree field out into the space. Because you want something like this, that it has a little hood on it and it projects the light in a specific location. Because you could run into this. So this is a great example we like to use. You have this. It's called a wall pack. A lot of businesses and a lot of places have the wall pack light. It just projects light generally out. But then look what happens when the guy blocks his hand. You see the person? So here you can vaguely see them, but it's not clear. But then when he cuts out the glare, there he is. So that's why it's really. Does everyone see that? That's why it's very important that you want a fixture that is pointed the light should be directed at the ground. So another thing about, this is one of the few, you talk about recommendations, this is one of the few things that they told us in all my training that you could totally tell people. Use LEDs, don't waste your money on anything else. As soon as your incandescents and your fluorescents and whatever burn out, replace them with LEDs. They cost less, they last longer, they use less power. There's really not a lot of downside to them. The only downside is that some fixtures you might have to retrofit and hire an electrician, or if you are one, or if you feel handy, you can do it. But there are some considerations for some fixtures that you can't just slap an LED bulb in. You might have to mess with electronics. Again, do your research. So also one thing to keep in mind is color temperature. We want between 3500 K and 5000 K. Does anyone know those terms or anything?
Calvin.
Yeah. And so with lighting, and you might be asking, well, how do I know where that is? There is now a standard that all light bulb boxes have this on it, light appearance. And you see down here, it has 3000 K. So these are good. The reason, this is a little low, but it's okay. I would aim for that, again, 3500 to 5000. The reason being is for color rendering, like we were talking about. These are probably, I would guess, the 5,000 to 6,000 K, because the color rendering is great. Again, you can tell clearly the colors on my uniform. But if you has anyone been to there's some coastal communities that are required to have what are called low pressure sodium lights. If you ever go to a beach condo in Florida, there's still some communities. If you ever go to a beach condo and the light is like super orange, those are terrible for color rendering. But I think it's because of the sea turtles. It confuses the sea turtles that they have the different lights, so that's why they have to use them. But always aim for that 4,000 to 5,000 color temperature. All right, so that's lighting. Again, LEDs 4,000 to 5,000. Don't worry about glare. Landscaping is, don't throw anything at me, don't hit me. Sometimes Septet can get accused of not liking landscaping. We love landscaping, but 2 foot, 6 foot rule. What does that mean? We want your bushes to be no higher than 2 feet, and we want the canopy of trees and other tall plants to be no lower than 6 feet. Because again, we want to have that clear line of sight, right? That clear line of sight. That's super, super important. So again, nothing taller than 6 feet, nothing nothing taller than 2 feet, nothing lower than 6 feet. There are some people that say it's 3 foot, 7 foot, but those are the general. You don't want it. You want your bushes to be between 2 and 3 feet. You want nothing lower than 6 to 7 feet, roughly there. Here's some common. Excuse me, I need to take a drink here. Here's some common examples of why. Why you would want that. Also, yeah, here it's going to interfere with having a lower than 6 feet is going to interfere with pedestrian traffic. I'm sure we've all come across that if you're tall enough like me. You come across that more than others. Running a tree branch. But then again, you have that too. That's a great hiding spot. But again, because look how tall it is. I don't know how tall this man is, but let's say he's 5 feet tall. That means these are like 6 feet, 7 feet, 8 feet tall. And also look at the location of this too. It's right by a door. So imagine, again, what do we talk about criminals? They want to ambush people. That's the single point. That's where people are going to be coming in. That's a great ambush spot. People are coming in at the entrance. You know they're going to be there. and I got a perfect hiding spot. So you also want to make sure that they're not blocking any lights or windows. It's very, 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 very common to have trees block your lights, especially for street lights. Most of the time you guys don't have to worry about that, but you might if, let's say, you have a tree that's on your property that's going into a street light. It might be something to consider that you preemptively do that, because again, it's going to help you, it's going to help your neighbors to really get the full effect of that lighting. And again, we don't want to block any windows. Again, I'm sure everyone has seen something like this, where you have the bushes, they just creep, 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 and they go up. One thing that you can also use landscaping for is hostile vegetation. So when you use hostile vegetation, that is anything that's sharp or pointy. So the common are bougainvillea. That's common here. Those are they're pretty. They grow like crazy down here, so be careful. They'll take over a lot of. They might become an issue, start blocking windows and lights. So be careful with them. But they have huge thorns on them. You also cactus, obviously probably the most common. They're one of the first things that people think of about thorny bushes. The roses, getting into Valentine's Day. I have Spanish bayonet, and then holly. These are just some common ones in Florida. What you use the hostile vegetation for is, let's say again you have your house was designed with this little hiding spot where a person could hide. What you do is if you plant a big old thing of Spanish bayonet in there, it's going to at least discourage people from going and using that hiding spot. So you use the hostile vegetation to places where you can't just bulldoze it and put up a new one. You could use it to discourage people from hiding there, and people from going to the places. Another something to consider, that this is very rare. I think I've only ever seen someone do this. We think this is how they gained entrance into a house once, and that was in Orange County. But if you have a garage, all your garages should be equipped with this emergency release handle, again, if the power goes out. One thing that you can do is there's enough wiggle room where you can put a wood wedge in there and then stick a hook in there and then pull the emergency lock. And then that way you just open the garage. And one thing I would also suggest is the door that leads from your garage into your house, put a deadbolt on that too, because most doors don't. I had to do that in mine. But this is very common. The way you get around that is tie up, use like a bread tie, go up there and just tie it up and make it really short. So that way you can't. And then you can have access to it. There's a few different methods. I've seen it where they put a piece of PVC pipe on it, so that way it just slips off. There are a few different methods. If you want to, you can just take it off, but then it's going to make it very difficult for you to open it when the power's out. But I would suggest the easiest one: get a bread tie, one of those little wire bread ties, tie it up really short, tie it with a bread tie. So one thing also that's very common is people not locking up their tools. A lot of times with burglars, they'll use what they find. So they'll use landscape rocks, they'll use ladders that people just have on the side of their house. They'll use the tools that they find. See a big old pile of bricks, can lead to using it to smash a window. So again, make sure that if you have a shed, good quality lock, again, do your research with Master Lock. But do good quality lock on your shed so that someone can't just come in there and open up and use the tools in it. And then if you have anything laying around your house, so just when you get home, walk around your house, you have a hammer that you forgot about, something like that, and remove it and secure it. Fencing. Fencing's great. It adds territorial reinforcement. That's great, right? It establishes this is my property. It slows down intruders. Obviously, it's not going to, unless you put razor wire on there. And even then, there are ways to get around that. But it's not going to prevent them, but it slows them down, right? And obviously, that should be a clue if you see someone jump over your fence. I'm not a detective, but that's a clue that you might want to call us. One thing also to consider is lock all your gates. And also, lock the gates on the inside of the fence. I do this, and it's a pain in my butt, because when I mow my yard, I have to go through the back and go and unlock all, instead of just going out where I store my lawn equipment in my garage, instead of just going out and then going to the gates in the front. It's a pain in the butt, but it's worth it, because again, it slows down intruders. If you have it on the log, instead of someone just coming up there with bolt cutters and snapping it off, they have to then jump the fence and then use the bolt cutters. So most gate hardware has especially like this style, I have this style, this is why I put it. They have a spot both on the inside and outside of the gate where you can put a lock through it. Also use an outdoor marine rated lock. So look for, when you're searching, look for marine. If you want to go real expensive, use marine grade because that's for salt, it's for saltwater mitigation. Or just an outdoor rated lock. Because unfortunately, if it gets rusted and it's a gate that you don't use that often, you might have to then get the bolt cutters out. All right, alarms. Quickly, I'm going to go over the different parts of an alarm. There are, unfortunately, this is a big one that when I come back, or if I come back in a year or two, this will be a big one that'll probably change in terms of technology. Usually, alarms consist of a control module, so that's where all the sensors are connected to, and that's usually where it either has a wired or a cellular phone connection. And then there's a keypad that activates, deactivates the alarm. There's an annunciator, so something that makes the siren, the light, or whatever. Those are kind of your three basic control modules. But then there's also one where it's all in one. So for instance, this one I looked up, this has the annunciator, the control module, and the keypad all in one. So those are your three basic, the backbones of the system, right? Those are how the system knows to activate the alarm and to contact authorities. So you have your sensors. The most common for residential, you have your contact sensors. So this is a wired one. Again, you have that you can use for either a door or a window. And all these sensors come in wired and wireless. The technology is amazing where the batteries last years. You also, and then you have a motion sensor. There's a million different versions. This is the most common looking type of motion sensor. I wonder if this room does not have. You also have a glass break sensor. Those are really interesting because when you break glass, it creates this sound that is very, very, very fast and very specific. So this sensor, all it is just a microphone that's just listening for that certain wavelength of sound.
And also listening to your conversation.
Maybe. So do your research.
He's in cybersecurity.
Yeah. That wouldn't surprise me. Fire, and then also fire and CO2 detectors as well. Those are your most common alarms they have. Does anyone have one of the DIY sets? So like Simply Safe, Ring, whatever. Those are great. We're finding those, especially if you live in an apartment. Those are awesome because you don't need much in an apartment, right? Especially if you're on a third or a second floor. You just get. It usually comes with a base station. You put a contact sensor at the front door. You put a motion sensor up. Boom, you're good. Right? It's 3 spots. So if you live in an apartment, the DIY is definitely the way to go. But again, pluses and minuses. Are you comfortable doing that? Install them correctly. So professional, you hopefully guarantee that the professional does it and installs it correctly. I would also, this happened to me when I have a professionally installed system. And they came in and the only thing they wanted to do was they just wanted to put a motion sensor essentially. They put some other sensors, but they just wanted to put in the living room, they wanted to put a motion sensor in the living room, and they didn't want to put any contact sensors on the windows and doors. I was like, because I understand the thinking behind it. The thinking is, well, when the person comes inside, they're going to activate the motion sensor. But what I've been talking about though, single point failure. So I made them come in and put contact sensors on all my windows and doors. It's like, no, I want it on it all. I know it's a little belt and suspenders, but again, avoiding that single point failure. So in an ideal system, you have contact sensors on your windows and doors, you have a motion sensor, and then you also have a glass break sensor. That's belts, suspenders, everything. Again, avoiding that single point failure. Cameras. Video, again, this is another big one that'll change in a year or two. You have video doorbells, right? A lot of people have that. I've also seen them now, they're starting to pop up on apartments, which is awesome. They have ones that replace the peephole. I think that's pretty cool. Again, that's single point failure, but that's still pretty cool. They allow for two-way communication. Video doorbells are awesome. They help us, especially with the package thieves. Those are awesome. Those help us out a lot. And then you have surveillance cameras. Those are just your cliche. You slap a camera up there that looks at something. Some are wired, some are wireless. Same for the video doorbells. Some will just take a few AA's and everything, and that's how it's powered. And then there are also some surveillance cameras that also allow two-way communication. Capabilities. what you want to look for is that it covers your entrances, it covers the perimeter of your house, and it covers your parked vehicles. Because having your cars broken into in Maitland and in probably all of Orange County is the most common crime. That's for your average citizen. That's the most common crime, having your car broken into. So you want to have, we would suggest on your driveway, if you have one, have a camera pointed at your cars. Also, you want to have it so that it does great low light reporting. This is a great example. I mean, that is an awesome low light camera. You can clearly tell who that person is. Again, with the color rendering, you can't tell like what shirt he's. You can tell it's a light colored shirt, but that's about it. But that's okay. That's great for identifying. You can see his facial features and everything. Also, good picture quality. Again, you get what you pay for with these. The big thing, you want to make sure that you can see faces. That however far you're installing it, you want to be able to see faces. You want to see license plates. Those are also really, really important. You want to be able to clearly zoom in and read the license plate. So, again, some considerations: recording quality. That's a big one. Another thing that gets kind of overlooked too, which is we've seen this happen, is the back end use of it. Not necessarily cameras, but the software and technology behind it. So is it easy to use? Because we've had that where, let's say we have an in-progress call, like boom, this is mainly for businesses, like hey, boom, we got an alarm, we went there, we saw the guy running out the back, hey, want to put out a bolo, let's do it, and then unfortunately the business owner is just futzing around with it because he doesn't know the system, he or she doesn't know the system. So ease of use is really important so that you can be able to, let's say you see someone, they're breaking into your car, you call 911, and you say, hey, I got him on camera, here it is, Mr. Responding Officer or Deputy, here it is. Whoop. So and then sometimes that speed is key because then we can bolo that out to other agencies and they can hopefully catch them. Also, remote access and monitoring, those are also some other things that should be considered. There are two different methods for mounting or getting information. You have power over Ethernet and you have coax. I would suggest power over Ethernet because that's expandable. That's probably, you'll be able to replace those cameras with newer cameras in the future using power over Ethernet. That is it. It's very, very, very dense. I will email this to, I've been having my contact with Ms. Hannah, so I'll email this presentation to her to have it distributed out. Does anyone have, this is my email address as well, you can take a picture and email me if you have any other questions or if you live within the city or if you own a business within the city, we would more than happy for free of charge to come out and do an assessment of your house or of your business. So it's 100% free. I don't know of an agency in the area that charges, which I would find that weird. If an agency charges most, it's free of charge. They'll come out and look at your business. If you have a question like, hey, I live here, who should I contact? I have contact with the best in Osceola, Orange, Seminole, even in Lake and a little bit in Brevard. I have contact with my counterparts in those agencies in those areas. So if you have any questions, I can tell you who to contact. Does anyone have any questions or comments or anything? That's a very, very informative. I know it's very, very. I'm packing it in a lot.
Great.
Thank you, Officer.
Yeah, sorry.
So just one thing about the garage, they do make it like a demo for your garage.
Yes.
Thing. So like if you can install in the frame right side by the door and it slides
Yes.
right into where the little frame goes, and then you can't pull it up.
Yeah. That's what I did for the hurricanes when I lost power at my house. They're just that simple little latches that go in the truck. That's great. It's just only thing would be if I don't know what would happen if you hit the up button with those engaged. Yeah.
It would go up and then it would go back down.
Yeah, exactly. So.